Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy show. My name is Hassani Pettiford, and we are here live and direct for another episode. We're talking about sex addiction. Okay, so in this particular series, we're doing a lot. Today, we're talking about the levels of addiction. There are 3 levels, in fact. And we're going to start off with level number 1. That's right, level number 1, because we want you to have a comprehensive breakdown of what it is and where you may find yourself if this is your particular issue. But listen, before we get started, we want to make sure that you take the time to like, share, and subscribe. Let the world know that we are on live. We want you to spread this word because this right here, this is what a lot of people have been waiting for. This is what a lot of people have been missing. And I think the key to their breakthrough is in this conversation. Once again, we're just a few weeks away, 18 days, in fact, from what? The Phoenix GALA Awards. If you have not gotten your tickets, make sure you go ahead and do that. The link is in the description. Tickets are really going by really quickly. We don't want you to miss out on an extravagant, phenomenal, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious event of a lifetime that could change the course of your life and your marriage. So make sure you want to be there. All right, guys, we're gonna dive right into this conversation. I want to start off by where we ended kind of yesterday, of giving a comprehensive understanding of what sex addiction is, and then we'll dive into level number 1. So as we said yesterday, sex addiction refers to excessive sexual thoughts, desires, and urges or behaviors that can't be controlled or cause distress and harm to your relationship, your finances, and other aspects of your life. Sexual addiction is also called hypersexuality, compulsive sexual behavior, and it goes by many other names. A sexual addiction substitutes a sick relationship to an event or a process for a healthy relationship with others. The addiction becomes central to their life. Their secret life becomes more real than their public life. Yeah, it's a meaty unpacking, but in essence, that's what it is. Now, if you are an individual, and I know that there are those of you who are out there that will say that's not me. You know, I have a this, but it's certainly not that. Well, the reason why I do this is because of that, and it's not because of what you just said. And so you're ruling yourself out. But what I want you to do is I want you to be open to the possibility that there may be something about this addiction that you haven't considered. And maybe there's some areas where you need help because you are struggling, your spouse is struggling, or your marriage is struggling. So be open. Don't come in here closed. Okay? Don't come in here closed. Be open to an opportunity of how you can level up in different areas of your life. Now, let's talk about these levels. There are 3 levels. Okay? Now, I don't want you to think that one level is less impacting than the other. I want you to think about it from a perspective of one level may be more socially acceptable than another. Of course, as we go into the deeper levels, the behavior is deeper, right? There's a lot. Let's just go through it. What I don't want you to make the mistake of is making light of or minimizing or trivializing level number 1, because it's the lower level, the lower tier, the lightest of the 3, if you will. But they can be just as destructive as the other 2. But let's take our time with this. Level number 1, okay? These are the behaviors that are typically associated with someone who has a level number 1 sex addiction. Number 1, masturbation. Now, listen, we live in a society where we're taught, listen, you got to discover yourself. You got to figure yourself out. You got to understand what you enjoy and what you like. So you got to masturbate. And that's masturbation. Listen, if I'm on a road trip and I've been away from my wife, you know, you tame that savage beast. You release one. You're good for the day. Now, in a normal, healthy manner, okay, masturbation may not be a problem. But I think when it comes to an addiction, they're talking about compulsive masturbation, okay? So what identifies someone's behavior as compulsive? Well, if you find yourself masturbating every single day, Some people actually have as a ritual, listen, in order for me to go to bed and relax, I've got to let one off. I've got to masturbate. I've got to release. I've got to do something with this pent up sexual tension in my body. I've got to release, and then I'll be settled and I'll be able to go to sleep, right? So if it becomes a ritual, okay, a daily ritual, it's in essence a vice. People who masturbate several times a day. There are people who will find themselves masturbating literally 3-4 times a day. So when I wake up in the morning, I got to masturbate. During lunch, I got to masturbate. In the evening, I got to masturbate before I go to bed. It's almost like if I'm going to eat a meal, this is going to be one of my meals to myself, right? So I've got my public display of how I handle my appetite, and then I have my private display of how I handle my sexual appetite. And so multiple acts of masturbation in a day, whether porn's involved or not, because it's not necessary, is an indication that this may be an addiction. Now, I wrote a book a long time ago entitled Black Thighs, Black Guys, and Bedroom Lies. Now, if you are white, you have white thighs and white guys and white lies. You understand? No matter what your ethnicity, if you're Asian, if you're Latino, if you're Arab, listen, we deal with all types of people. That's just the name of the title of the book. This behavior may apply to you. Well, in here, there's a chapter entitled, I Don't Want to Be a Player No More, okay? And it shares a story of a man. His name is Aaron. He's 26 years old. He's married. This is what it says. And it talks about his sexual addiction with masturbation. Let me just share this quick story with you. It says, for 6 years, I've struggled with the spirit of lust. I was never a real promiscuous man, but the desire for sex kept me trapped in a self-destructive behavior. Understanding that sex was off limits until marriage, I often settled for the next best thing, masturbation. It was an excessive compulsive habit that had often drove me to the point of no return. Masturbation was a drug that my body craved for. I often compared myself to Pookie. Remember Pookie from New Jack City? Simply because the drug that I had eternally been addicted to kept calling me. Anything that remotely reminded me of the pleasures of sex resulted in a self-stimulating one-man show. Late night movies, women magazines, sexually explicit music, porn music videos, and large breasts drove me past temptation into the wilds of physical pleasure. Vaseline, lotion, naked pinups, private porn tapes, and a vast imagination were the tools that I used to meet this sexual high. My dirty deed was not limited to a late night visitation within the solitude of my own homes. On the contrary, it accompanied me at all times, spaces and places. It followed me into public bathrooms, street alleyways, behind parked cars. Could you imagine? I'm walking down the street and I have to release. There's a parked car over there. Let me just go behind it and do what I need to do. Woodsy areas and even gridlock traffic. Now, I'm in the car, in gridlock traffic, stuck at a light. I'm not going anywhere. Let me slip down and masturbate. While people often left non-smoking public areas to inhale something but a fatal nicotine stick, I often left public premises to relieve a burning fire sparked from within. Though the pleasurable indulgence soothed the savage beast that lay within me, it often caused me to drop to my knees in guilt, pity, and shame. That's not all. My eyes, my knees, my spine weakened, which caused me tremendous physical harm. Now we're dealing with the consequences, the physical consequences of an excessive behavior of masturbation. I cried out for help, but no force was strong enough to rescue me from my own deplorable pit of destruction. I tried almost everything, but nothing seemed to work. But it wasn't until I immersed myself in the Word of God, flip to the next page, that stuck together, the drama continues, that changes began to take place. The scripture convicted me and gave me a step-by-step solution for finally overcoming a habit that could have ultimately destroyed my life. The scripture will never be able to kill the urge and craving that periodically seeks to consume my body, but it can stop the lascivious spirit in its path and declare it defeated in the name of Jesus. What a powerful, powerful story. I love that last part. The scripture, the word of God, whatever solution that you tap into that's working may not ever take the craving away or the urge away. And I think that's the mistake that people make when it comes to overcoming addiction. They're like, well, once the desire goes away, I'm good. But what if it never goes away permanently? What if, like seasons, it comes and it goes? And while there's a season where it's not here and I feel the coast is clear, I've overcome my addiction, and out of nowhere, boom, it hits you. And that urge and that craving comes upon you, and you figure, wow, I guess I still have the addiction. I might as well fulfill the desire that my body is telling me to enjoy, and you let one off again. See, that's the trick of the enemy. And so the reality is we have to understand what an addiction is and how to overcome it, and what happens when we have these particular feelings that we feel, that we think we cannot control or manage. But here we have in this scenario an individual whose addiction got the best of him, and he found himself in extreme situations where he would masturbate multiple times a day. Obviously, this is a situation that would clearly identify him as an addict. Now, you listen to this and you rule yourself out because you're like, I would never do that in a public bathroom stall. I would never do that in gridlock traffic. I would never do that in an alleyway looking for a car to get behind. And so what happens is, because you wouldn't go to those extremes, you think that you may not have addictive behavior. But the reality is, stop comparing yourself to an extreme and look at the situation for what it is. If you find yourself masturbating once a day, upwards of 4 times a day or more, it's an indication that you may be a sex addict. Okay, that's masturbation. Now, the reason why we started with that is because that's something that many people do. Many people masturbate, okay? But what we're talking about is the compulsivity of it that makes it an addiction. I hope you're understanding what it is that I'm saying. Let's go to the next one. Now we have compulsive relationships, okay? This can manifest in a number of different ways, okay? So number one, the first example of a compulsive relationship is a couple. Now, listen, I hear you already. We've worked with many couples over the years. There are couples who have a very, very, very high sex drive, and they engage in sex daily. And I'm like, man, hats off. If you two have a mutual beneficial sexual experience where you both have desires and cravings and you engage in it every single day, good God, go for it. Go for the gold. However, there are many couples who have the same behavior in their marriage. They have sex every single day. In fact, someone said on this show yesterday, they referenced Scottie Pippen and how Scottie Pippen had a desire to have sex with his wife 4 times a day. Now, that is an example. I'm not identifying Scottie Pippen as an addict. That's not what I'm doing. But the behavior of having sex once a day with my spouse or upwards of 4 times a day can be an addiction. How? Why? I just have a high sex drive. Because sex in a marriage is a mutually beneficial relationship where you both win. But if someone finds themselves being used as a tool and manipulation, if someone finds themselves trapped in a relationship where they don't feel valued, they don't feel honored, all they feel is that their spouse wants them as a vehicle or a vessel to fulfill their sexual desires. If someone's in a relationship where there's guilt and there's shame and there's a trapping feeling every time you come to the bedroom to engage in sex, if someone's in a relationship where they feel like all I'm here to do is physically serve your need, and outside of this transaction, not interaction, transaction, I have no worth to you, I have no value to you, I am not significant to you, this is an indication that there is a sex addiction, and it's compulsive behavior within your relationship. Listen, we've counseled many couples, and literally we're in the sessions, and the husband is saying, well, man, I just have a drive. Yeah, but do you know what this is doing to me? And every time we touch, it pulls me further and further away from you. So the touch that would once stimulate is now the touch that repels, and I can't take it anymore. And we've seen it flipped right on its head, where the woman had the strong sexual desire and wanted it several times a day, and the gentleman was nowhere near that, and it created issues in the relationship. So compulsive relationship shows up in that context. Another example of a compulsive behavior or compulsive relationship is when someone who's married in the confines of a covenant steps outside of that covenant and has multiple one-night affairs. So think about a person who travels, right? I'm a salesperson, I'm a rep, I'm a medical tech, or whatever the scenario may be. And I find myself always getting on and getting off of planes. I'm in different cities several times a month. And so either their addiction slipped out and they find themselves, every time I leave home, I find myself in a situation, or they use the job as a cover for their addiction. So this is someone who knows that they have a sex addiction, and when they get away from home, they can experience it to its fullest degree. You know what's interesting? There are certain couples, literally, who have rules when it comes to infidelity. And this is one of the rules. And you know, the more I learned this a long time ago, and then I actually found it as a rule with a couple that I was working with. Their rule is, if you are physically away from the home 30 miles or more, whatever you do 30 miles away is not considered cheating. However, if you engage with someone within a 30-mile radius, it is a betrayal, it is cheating, and it's a justification for divorce. Some say if you cross state lines, okay, as long as I'm in the state, you know, that's the parameter. I can't cheat, I can't do anything. But if I cross state lines, okay, then I have all the freedom and all the rights to engage in an affair. Now that, to me, listen, I'm not here to judge you, but that's wrong. Infidelity, period, is absolutely wrong, and it shows up in that particular way. And so I could see this playing out with an individual who struggles with an addiction. So in this particular scenario, multiple one-night stands, the sexual relationship between a couple isn't the best, it's average at best, and sometimes people have a desire for more excitement, more thrill, living on the edge, however that plays themselves out. So this particular wife had a one-night stand with someone that she met in a situation. She felt convicted. She came back and she told her husband immediately. She was surprised by his response. He was not humiliated by it. He was not judgmental as a result of it. He was intrigued. He was actually turned on. And so he encouraged her to go out again and do it. And so when she would go out again and do it and come back and tell him, it somehow created a sexual desire, and they engaged in passionate sex. So the idea of my wife sleeping with someone else creates such a desire and a craving within me for you that became the new norm. So she would go out several times a week, come home, and they would make love several times a week. But then he wanted to, what's the term when you're playing cards? Ante up. He wanted to take it to the next level. He said, listen, rather than just telling me about your sexual escapades, why don't you bring them in here? And engage in sex in our bedroom as I watch and masturbate. You see what happens in terms of the sexual pathology of individuals, of how far things can go. So that became their new dynamic. I don't know how many times a week, but that became a regularity. She would bring home random men that she would meet, have sex in front of her husband as he would masturbate. That is called cockling. That's an actual term for it. And a deeper dive of that is, not only am I going to have sex in front of you as you masturbate, now I'm going to humiliate you as I'm having sex with this other person. I'm going to tell you how great he or she is. I'm going to tell you how big he or she is. I'm going to tell you how you don't do it. So now the personal humiliation and disdain, and now I'm attacking your ability and telling you what you're not, is a part of the turn on. See, this is how twisted it can actually go when you open up that Pandora's box. And so this is the situation that people find themselves in. They've let the devil into their bedroom by opening up their marriage and engaging in what they thought would be an exciting, hot, pleasurable experience. But once the season ends and they go back to a season of normality or of normalcy, whatever the term may be, then it's almost like, while I'm engaged in it, I don't realize the damage that I'm doing until it's done. But when it's like a high. When you take that hit, you know, that heroin hit, or you right there, you're on this high, but eventually you come crashing down. And when you crash, now you have the hangover. Now you feel like vomiting. Now you have a hard headache. Now you have issues in your organs because of the damage that you've done because of the chemical that you brought into your body. Well, likewise, when this season of your relationship comes to an end and you both have a wake-up call and you're waking up out of your stupor because you no longer have a reprobate mind, you realize the damage that is done to you, to your spouse, to your marriage, to your future, to your family, and now you have to pick up all the pieces. And so what we find is that couples who struggle the most in the recovery process are those who have let other people into their homes. This is an example of sexual compulsion. Listen, there's so much more. We're just getting started. But let's take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back after this quick message. Or maybe not. Bobby, where you at, my friend? So what we'll do is we'll go into the next one until Bobby gets set up and ready to go. The next one that we have here is pornography. Okay, pornography. Pornography is a person who is addicted to looking at naked bodies. So whether this is done in the form of, now listen, I may be dating myself, but there was a time where people would get magazines and slip them in between their mattress or hide them in a closet. And when the lights go out and when no one's around, they would open up this magazine and look at these still images of pictures of men and women. And that would be the turn on. And then it became about these VCR tapes that you would slip into a VCR. Some were caught because they forgot to take the VCR out of the tape. And so spouse comes, plays a movie, and boom, they see porn on the tube, the television tube, right? And then when they got more sophisticated, it was about DVDs, right? And now you're seeing DVDs all over the place in these DVD cases, and it's porn. And then now it's all over the internet, right? So all you need now really is a phone. At one point, you had to set up membership to a website in order to see pornography, but now all you need to do is a basic Google search. In fact, if you are not the person who actually goes on porn websites, all you need to do is go on your Instagram, because so many women and men are scantily clad, showing body parts, tempting you, teasing you. You've got OnlyFans accounts that anybody can have now. So if I want to have my own porn website, if I want to see my neighbor's porn website, whatever it takes, it's so much out there, it's so much into the public that it's almost normal behavior, as sick as that is. And so now, even though I have this healthy body, this attractive body that at one time turned me on in my spouse, I now look outwardly. I look at the alternative other to get stimulation. So if I want a Latin body, I'm going to look at that. If I want an Asian body, if I want a white body, a black body, a tall or short, a thick or thin, whatever my desire may be, with a click of a button, I will find it. Okay, but maybe you've taken it a step further. Maybe you're the individual that goes to the strip club, right? Because seeing something on a visual screen is one thing, but man, you got to go a little bit deeper, right? So now you go to bars and you go to locations where you're seeing people dance and they're naked, and now you can flirt with them, and now you can stick dollar bills, and throw them kind of on the stage, or stick them and tuck them away in there, whatever it may be. And then you got the champagne room, and then you got the lockdowns, and one thing leads to another. And then you're like, how did I get here? It all started with an image that I saw in a magazine or online. And before you know it, boom, you find yourself in a situation where now you are addicted to naked bodies. It's a turn on. And so what happens in that process, you dehumanize the individual and you sexualize that person. It's not about their heart. It's not about their purpose. It's not about their personality. It's not about getting to know them, but it's getting to know them, the physical them. And so you've compartmentalized aspects of what you are drawn to. And so what happens is eventually you begin to have possibly a disgust or a disdain or simply a disinterest in the physical body that you have in the form of your spouse. And so we've seen that people who have addictions, what happens is it diminishes the sexual relationship and desire, the healthy, normal desire that you once had for your spouse, because of this fictitious scenario that plays itself out in porn. And so now the spouse can never live up, and the relationships that you have can never live up to where you find yourself in your fantasy. Does that make sense? So we're talking about pornography. That is a part of this level number one of addiction. So let's go to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Hopefully this works. If not, we'll keep going. Bobby, hit him. Guys, we're back. We're talking about sex addiction. The last one we let off with was pornography. I want to go to this quick comment. This is from April. This is my husband. He's addicted to looking at young ladies, and now I'm being ignored. And he honestly doesn't see anything wrong with looking, although he cheated on me with a stripper. And see, this is what I'm saying. This is the slippery slope. One thing can lead to another. We're going to talk about the mindset of a cheater, okay, as well as the mindset of someone who has an addiction. And there is a slippery slope where you begin. First of all, it starts off with a belief, an erroneous false belief that leads to a justification, rationalization, compartmentalization. It's a whole thing when we get into that. But this is a real scenario, guys, and I hope that you're kind of assessing where you are, your spouse is, and where you find yourself in your relationship. Let's go to the next one. Now we're only dealing with level number one, and this next one you're gonna be like, man, this is level number one. How much deeper does it get? But this is prostitution. Now, we do have a segment. We do have a portion of couples who come to our last chance weekends and private marriage intensives who have been guilty of engaging in sex with prostitutes, okay? Now, interestingly enough, we find that this is very normal and common in different parts of the world. We deal with people all over the world. No particular country, no particular culture, no particular ethnicity has a monopoly on this type of sex because we see it with all people, but it's an apparent thing. And so whether I am going out and having sex with literally a prostitute, a streetwalker, that would be the first category. Okay, so as I'm going on the corner of Broad and Market, I know what section of town to go to. I know what they look like. Now, there is this I guess you could say, stereotypical image of what a prostitute looks like. I'm from Jersey, so anytime we would cross the bridge into New York City, you knew what sections of town the prostitutes would come out. And back in the day, right, the prostitutes, they would have on these 10-inch heels, and they'd be in this lingerie, they'd be wearing, fur, half dress. It was a thing. Think about peacocks, how they show their feathers. So back in the day, it was like something that, oh my God, is that a prostitute? You knew it. You could see it from a mile away. There's a culture to prostitution now, right? So it's not as flamboyant all over the world. You pick up cues. You know what to look for. You know the behaviors. You know the signs, especially if this is what you engage in. And so it's a whole underworld, if you will. And so when a person finds themselves sleeping with randoms, okay, and getting sexual needs met, either it's going to be, I want a sex act performed on me, like oral sex, or I want to engage in sex, okay, and I'm going to pay for it. So whether it's in a hotel room, or whether it's in a car, or whether it's a back alley, whatever the case may be, I'm driven to it. And so not only are we talking about, sexual infidelity, but obviously financial infidelity, because there's a financial cost engaged in this type of behavior. So listen, if I'm dealing with a streetwalker, I'm constantly going to the ATM. I'm constantly keeping cash on me. And this is how it stays under the radar for a spouse living with someone with this type of an addiction, because I can't track or trace, what that $200 ATM withdrawal was used on. But I find myself looking at the records, and all I see is a withdrawal here, ATM, transaction here. And where's all this money going? Bills aren't being paid, things are late, savings are drained, gifts aren't given during holidays, vacations aren't taken. Why? Because that money is being used to fulfill a sexual desire. So the streetwalker scenario is what we are all most common with. But there are other things that people engage in. In the book Black Guys and Bedroom Lies, I wrote that book such a long time ago when I was in my early 20s. And all of it is still relevant today. But there's something that we called the flesh-cash connection. The flesh-cash connection. In this particular scenario, sex is a transaction. And the bedroom is a bartering table from which all transactions are made, right? Not emotional, not relational, truly physical, sexual transaction in an exchange for cash. And we see this happening because there's many people who are prostituting themselves, but won't name it that or label it that, but that's what they're doing every single day. Because, Sarah or Susie or whoever, they need their bill paid. Now, I can help you with that bill, but, we're going to have to do something in order for me to help you with that bill. So now, fine, you need a couple $100, no problem. I'll hit you off if you hit me off. Transaction, that's a form of prostitution. So because I'm working third shift and, expenses have gone up and I got these kids to feed, I need help, okay? I need financial assistance paying for this lifestyle. Now, it worked the first time. It's not what I wanted to do. It wasn't ideal, but I know where I can go if I need to, if I can't get this money. And so now I go back to whomever, and I have another, transaction, another flesh cash or cash flesh connect transaction. That is prostitution that both of you are engaging in. Now, there's websites that you can go to where you find people who literally will hook up, but they will hook up in exchange for cash. They will do it in exchange. There's a bartering trade system. So if there's not dollars being exchanged, obviously now you have apps. I can Cash App, I can Zelle, I can do all types of things to get the money to you. I can PayPal, I can Venmo. But if not cash or dollar bills, there are barter and trading going on for particular things. Services. Okay, so you need your faucet fixed. I can be a plumber and fix your faucet. Okay, you need that thing repaired in the back? No problem. I got you. Okay, because if you go to a contractor, that's going to cost you thousands of dollars. Don't even worry about it. I got you. If you got me, I got you. Transaction, flesh cash connection. So prostitution shows up in a multitude of ways, and we see that many people have fallen guilty to this type of behavior, but it is a form of an addiction, okay? It's a form of an addiction. We're on level number 1, guys. And the last one for today, and I know I've gone over time, we're talking about anonymous sex. Now, there's the stereotypical view of the gay man, right? The person who's gay, who's living, matter of fact, they're married, if you will, but they have gay sex, okay? And so there's the scenario where in the middle of the night, they creep out with their spouse asleep and they go to a location. They go to a place where they're in the dark, they're outside, and randoms just come up. They look at each other, they assess each other from head to toe, they go somewhere in the backwoods and they engage in sex, and then that spouse creeps back home and the wife is none the wiser. They wake up the next morning and they go about their day, right? So once again, those are the stereotypical extreme scenarios that people find themselves in. But there's first of all, this is not a male specific behavior, because we find many women, many wives engaging in anonymous sex as well. They may not do it in a back alley, they may not do it by a dark tree, but there are places that you can go where literally you go into certain rooms and all you see are body parts. Whether you're in a bathroom stall and listen guys, it's out there. And we find that wives as well as husbands who have an insatiable desire, a yearning that cannot be quenched, an appetite that cannot be fulfilled, an addiction that they have not been able to overcome, they find themselves going off and connecting and having anonymous sex with individuals and come back home as if everything's all right and engage possibly in sex with their spouse, and their spouse has no clue. All of these are level number 1. So let's go through these again. Masturbation is 1. Compulsive relationships, that's number 2. Pornography, number 3. Okay, prostitution, number 4. And anonymous sex, number 5. We're just on level number 1. If this is you, if this is where you find yourself, I want you to reach out to us. See, we just don't deal with infidelity recovery and divorce prevention. We go into the depths of it and we help you and we meet you where you're at. There are many programs out there. There are many support groups out there. There are even licensed trained therapists who specialize in addiction of this particular sort. Couples Academy can also serve you in that way. So if you find yourself in this situation, please reach out to us. Go to the website, couplesacademy.org. Set up a discovery call. Let's talk about your situation so that we can help you overcome. Because we do not believe that you have to cope with this. We believe that there's a cure for this. And so this doesn't have to become a permanent sentence in your life and in your marriage that you can't overcome. There is help. We are here to help you. We love you. We care. So please reach out to us. Tomorrow, we're going to go a little bit deeper. We're going to talk about level number 2. I want you to bring your notebooks and your pens. I want you to bring someone to our conversation tomorrow who you know is in need of assistance. And I will also take the time to address many of the comments and the questions that you brought in today. Love you guys. See you tomorrow. Level number 2. Take care.